Welcome back to the Macroball Podcast. This is episode 19, part 2. In this part, we will be talking about contenders or pretenders in the Eastern Conference. We talk about 7 teams I've identified as actually having a shot to win the titles. So we also will not be talking about a few different teams like my Raptors, the streaking Wizards, or at least the Wizards that were streaking prior to the All-Star break. We won't be talking about the Hawks. But we will be talking about 7 other teams that at least have a small chance of winning. And hope you enjoy. Let's go. Okay, cool. So we're going to do contender or pretender now. This is a big segment. So overall, just some quick thoughts. Teams settle in, I think, after the trade deadline. There's no more pressure. I think guys, you know what you are. Either you've been traded or you've been spared, and so then you settle into your role on your team, whether you're a championship contender or not. And I think a lot of the play-in teams are going to be playing a little bit better given what's happened. Obviously, the Lakers come to mind. Some of the other teams. So I think the trade deadline sort of pressure cooker passing. I think that bodes well for a lot of teams. And we're going to start in the Eastern Conference with the number 1 seeded Boston Celtics, currently a 42-17 team, best record in the NBA, 3rd in offensive rating, 4th in defensive rating, and they are 5th in net rating. They have the best point differential in the NBA, plus 6.2, and they're 4th in true shooting percentage. I bring these stats up because they're generally pretty good markers of a championship contender, based on my research. Look, no-brainer contender. I don't really think we have to spend too much time on them. We'll start with you, maybe, Josh. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I think by your estimation, they've had a couple setbacks. They've had a couple identity sort of crises. Kyrie being there. I think at this moment in time, they just know who they are. They're well coached from top to bottom. I think, yeah, they're good. And I think they're going to pose a lot of trouble for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I don't even, I guess the one question I want to ask is, do they even have any flaws? I watched them play, and I'm like, they look pretty flawless overall.
I'm with you on that.
Is Jason Tatum, as a number 1 guy, can he what are their fourth quarter, scoring stats numbers? That's the only thing. Do they have a go-to?
I think they're good.
They're in the crunch numbers?
I'm assuming they're good. I can't remember off the top of my head.
See,
I was looking over clutch stats today, but I don't specifically remember them at the top, but I think they're in the top 5 or 10.
And I think their only real is, do they have enough bigs to either stop a Giannis or Bam Adebayo? And that's really because they've got the guards.
You don't need to stop Bam. He just doesn't want to shoot.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, because that's really the only contenders in the sort of the East. And if you make it out into the the finals, the West, there are too many teams, as we'll get to.
Yeah. Well, I would put to you, does anyone stop Giannis? Because I think the Celtics, to answer your question, I think they have enough bigs to make things, quote-unquote, difficult, but you're not going to stop him. He's going to get, especially in the playoffs when he goes 110% every game. He already does during the regular season. I think he's going to get his, whatever it is, 30 and 15, 35 and 20. He's a monster. It's Giannis. He's like the new Shaq.
I think the approach has always been against Giannis teams in the playoffs is you shut down the guys around him. And then the series comes down to if Drew Holiday's going to hit 7 threes one game or if he's going to shoot 30% for the series.
That's a great point, yeah. Speaking of the Bucks, so currently the 2nd seed, 41-17, 22nd in offensive rating, not that great, but they've also missed Chris Middleton for most of the season. They're 2nd in defensive rating, and they're 6th in net rating. For what it's worth, obviously a different team. The Warriors last year were 16th in offensive rating, and 2nd in defensive rating. So offensive rating being middle of the pack or worse, not necessarily the best indicator. But again, the Warriors could be considered an exception given the way they play in the playoffs. And Steph, they're the Bucks are the 2nd best rebounding percentage in the league behind, I bet you can't guess this, the Houston Rockets, surprisingly, killing it on the boards. Probably Şengün.
Throw enough bricks, you eventually catch 1 or 2.
The Bucks are 22-6 in clutch games this year. That's the best record in the league under clutch stipulations. And they're heading into the All-Star break on a 12-game win streak. So they're killing it right now. I don't think we need to spend too much time on them, but what do you think, Phil? Bucks, contender, pretender?
Contender for sure.
Yeah.
Just not too much. I mean, they've already done it. That team hasn't changed much. If anything, they've got a bit better. They're always going to be in the mix.
They just have a system that works. I think that's what it is. It's like 1, 2, 3. Their top 3, you can rely on them in the playoffs. Giannis is a freak of nature. And, yeah, they have good pieces in place. Brook Lopez, Defensive Player of the Year, maybe. Joe Ingles, doing work.
I hope they're healthy. That's my only thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there is enough games. Like, Middleton's coming off the bench at this moment in time. I just hope there's enough games to get him finals ready.
Should
with
be
enough legs underneath him where if he needs to go, he can go.
Yeah. I'd love to see Celtics Bucks, like just coming back to what you're saying. Josh, Celtics Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals would be one of the best series you could think of. So like going back to 2018, the Celtics won in 7. 2019, the Celtics won game 1. Then it was a gentleman's sweep. Or is that called a douchebag sweep? Where you intentionally lose the first game and then you just sweep the rest. Anyway, Bucks swept the next 4 in 2019, and then the Celtics won in 7 last year. That was a great series despite Middleton's injury. There's actually a game coming up in March between them to determine the tiebreaker if needed, because there's only one game separating them, so that'll be juicy. But yeah, Bucks contender pretty clearly. Moving on to the New York Knicks, 33-27. They're the 6th seed. 7th in offensive rating, 15th in defensive rating, 8th in net rating, 3rd best rebounding percentage in the league. I'm going to start by saying they're very clearly a pretender, but they have all the potential to be a difficult opponent in the first round, like a very difficult opponent. I think their ceiling is a second-round exit, and their floor is like a tough 7-game series against whoever they match up with. Maybe the Sixers, let's say.
No, I can agree with that. I think Jalen Brunson has clearly been balling out, but Julius Randle, I don't think he has enough star potential or enough consistency with his shooting where in the finals teams game plan for you, and they're going to put him in as many difficult situations as possible, or they're just going to let him get it fly and put every defensive player on everyone else, and therefore just go, you have to beat us.
Yeah.
And I think he crumbles. I think he's a great player. I think he's done a great amount for New York when they were struggling, but I can't see him being your, go-to guy in a championship team.
Yeah, they don't feel like they have enough at this point.
Pretender for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, and not even in a bad way. Like, I think they had a really strong off-season. This season's probably been as good as they could have hoped, given how tight both conferences are.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Second round exit as a ceiling's pretty good, and if you achieve that, you take that, you build on it. I think if you're a New York fan or if you're in the organization, you're pretty happy with a season like that. Can't really ask for much more.
Yeah. Joel?
Pretender.
Yeah, for sure. Unanimous. They're just a young team right now. They're building organically, which is what I like about, like, they're doing the opposite of their crosstown rivals in Brooklyn. They're building organically with younger players. Now, the other thing, too, is the GM, Leon Rose, is a CAA former agent, and they keep getting a bunch of CAA players. This is where the rumor mill starts with Karl Anthony Towns, also a CAA player. He could be in the mix to go to the Knicks eventually. I don't know what kind of package you put together. Like, I don't know if the T-Wolves would want Julius Randle, but maybe he's a better fit next to Rudy Gobert, given that you can't really trade that albatross of a contract. So the point being, keep an eye out for the next couple seasons with the Knicks. They've got some decent assets. They picked up Josh Hart at the trade deadline, but yeah, they're just going to make life hell for somebody, I think, in the first round and bow out gracefully, or not gracefully, in New York Knicks fashion. So speaking of crosstown rivals, we're going to move on to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, obviously, they just unloaded all their superstars, but we have to talk about them because they're currently the 5th seed, 34-24. Now, all these stats are a bit mixed up, but overall, they're 9th in offensive rating, 14th in defensive rating, 9th in net rating. That's all going to change probably. Since the Kyrie trade, which was February 6th, 18th in offensive rating, 20th in defensive rating, 20th in net rating. So we're already seeing those results come out. I think whatever happens with the team, it's just all gravy. Like, it's just like, oh, we finished 7th. Great. Okay, we'll play the Bucks in the first round and get our ass kicked. But yeah, now they're being led by Spencer Dinwiddie, Michael Bridges, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't really, is this going to be like a fake playoff team? Do you know what I mean? Like it just has it's like, oh, we happen to be here and now we have to play in the playoffs.
They could turn into the Golden State Warriors.
Pretenders.
What was it that year? Baron Davis and Steven Jackson were there. Would they
We Believe
They
Nets?
beat the first round. The first round
they
Mavericks.
are not the We Believe. There is no chance. Baron Davis isn't dead set.
Stranger things have happened.
I think it's exciting though because you
I
said
just
what?
like stirring up.
You said 34 and 24.
Right now, yeah.
So they only got to win 7 games to lock in a 500 record, and then that probably gets them at least a play-in berth. They're obviously not a contender, but they've got talented players and they're well coached. They can be one of these teams that, like, they're not making it past the first round, but whoever they match up with, they can make it exciting, make it scary for them. They might end up just being one of those teams that you fall in love with for that reason.
I should point out they have the seventh toughest remaining schedule in the NBA, according to tankathon.com. Shout out to those boys. That website's great. Like you say, I can see them falling to the play-in, being a tough matchup. Kind of like the Knicks. It's just going to be New York teams giving the other team a headache, but not really too much to worry about. I can't remember a situation where this has happened, where a team loses their most important players and they still end up as a playoff team. It seems like they will just even lose the play-in game, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Next team, the Miami Heat. This one should be interesting. They're currently the 7th seed, 32 and 27, 26th in offensive rating, not good, but 5th in defensive rating, so 20th in net rating. Potentially, this team was one Jimmy Butler three-pointer away from being in the NBA Finals last year. And, yeah, I mean, think of how much differently we were talking about not only them, but the Celtics, if that went down. What do you guys think about the Miami Heat?
Pretenders.
Okay.
Dark horse contender, like not in the same tier as the actual contenders, but it feels disrespectful to group him with the Knicks and the Nets. I don't know, just every year they just feel like a playoff team, Miami. Maybe that's just a Heat culture thing that we're sold on, but I don't know, it's like if you walk up against a healthy Heat in a playoff series, like you got to bring your best shit.
Okay, let's just say it. We put Kyle Lowry defending, Brown, or defending, Drew Holiday. Are you putting him in good stead? Like, are you going,
Nah.
that's going to be our primary defender on the best point guards coming out of the East. Like, he's going to get absolutely smoked. And at this moment in time, does he make up for it enough on the offensive end? I just don't.
Probably not.
I don't
But
trust
you do
him
have
enough.
One of the best switchable bigs in the league. Most teams run pick and roll in the postseason because it's a half court game then. Bam's the most mobile, most switchable big in the league. He can protect the rim. He's an amazing help defender. Jimmy's an amazing perimeter defender if Kyle Lowry's getting cooked. I think you've got enough, dirty, gritty hustle guys that you don't have to put Kyle Lowry out there just because you're paying him that.
Yeah.
Look, I don't trust either him or Tyler Hero to defend against.
Oh, Tyler will get cooked on defense, but that's not what you're paying for.
Are you forgetting about Gabe Vincent and Max Strauss? Like, Max Strauss, yes, can make buckets, but Gabe Vincent has been holding down that point guard role since Kyle Lowry's been out, hence why they're in the 17th, whether he's been playing okay basketball, and Eric Spoelstra is starting him over Kyle. Even when he was okay, he was still starting over Kyle. Even when Gabe was he does all the little things, and that's all you need to do. And you'd bang on, Phil. They're not a normal season team. They're a playoff team. And if they come up against a Milwaukee, someone of that nature, they're going to make life freaking hard for them.
Well, this is what
That's
I would
what
say.
they're built for.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, Joel. Although I think when you're starting Gabe Vincent, that feels like it's out of necessity. Like, you're going to want to start Lowry, to me. But Eric Spoelstra knows better than we do, so whatever. Maybe he's on point with what you're saying. My point would be, the Heat are going to make life hard for you. Now, we're going to get to this team in a second, but if they become the 5th seed, so let's say Brooklyn drops in the standings, Miami climbs to 5 or maybe even 4, there's a bit of a gap there given the team we're going to talk about. Cleveland is at, I would think, 38 wins. Cleveland versus Miami in the first round is not a good matchup for Cleveland. That could help them get into the second round. And then, things just kind of snowball from there. I don't know. Miami's one of those weird teams. I like your take, Phil, about them being a dark horse team, but they're definitely a pretender. They just didn't improve the team. Kevin Love doesn't move the needle. They just kind of sat on their laurels, and they're kind of going to stick around with Heat culture. It's not enough. I don't like this team.
They got great fourth quarter, sort of struggle numbers, but it just seems like, Jimmy's just bailing him out. And you saw in the bubble, he's literally, exhausted.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he can truly.
Yeah, and I think you and I have spoken about it before, Mackenzie, where clutch stats are sort of overrated.
It's hard to judge them. It's I
think they count for something, but at the same time, pretty much every team in the league with a star player, your clutch offenses give them the ball and let him go to work. Jimmy's one of the clutcher guys in the league, one of the better shot creators in the league.
Yeah.
Jimmy will do what he needs to do down the stretch, and then sort of the clutch stats represent all five that are on the court. But I don't have faith in the other four. I've got faith in Jimmy.
But when they're doing that against, what was it, Charlotte Hornets, there was a tight game between them, and it's Jimmy scores, 4 of the last 8 points or something, and you're like, that's amazing. But then you're like, why are you struggling against Charlotte?
Fair.
Jimmy feels like one of those guys that can just turn it on but doesn't during the regular season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look, if he cared about the regular season, his numbers could look a lot better.
We need long dreads, Jimmy. That's
No, we don't. I'm glad that's in the past.
I just want to throw out there, you guys would have seen the video of the kid that flew from, I think, South America. It was 4,000.
Venezuela?
Oh, and Jimmy didn't play?
Yeah, Jimmy didn't play. But my question is, who wants to fly that far to watch Jimmy Butler play? He's not that exciting. I know it's that kid's favorite player, but I just don't like watching him play.
I heard this conversation about that stuff the other day because it seems like that's happening more and more with the load management. Is this really true, or are these people that live there and then they see the injury report, Jimmy's out, and they're like, well, let me get my sign real quick, and they start drawing it up outside the arena?
Wow.
Because half of them get free courtside tickets for that.
That's a good conspiracy theory.
If I'm on holiday in LA and I see that Bron, AD, and D'Lo are out, I'm buying a seat and a sign that says, I flew all the way here to watch you guys.
I flew from Mars to watch this game.
And then I get courtside seats.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to look into that a bit. That feels like a Kyrie-esque conspiracy theory. So, as I was saying, Cleveland Cavaliers, if they matched up with Miami, that would be an interesting one. But we'll talk about the Cavs now. So, they're the 4th seed right now, 38-23. 10th in offensive rating, 1st in defensive rating. I really like their defense. 2nd in net rating. They actually play at the slowest pace in the NBA. You could argue that bodes well for the playoffs when obviously the pace slows down. They're also allowing the 2nd fewest second chance points in the NBA behind, you'll never guess it, Chicago, a trash team. Now, they have the 2nd easiest remaining Eastern Conference schedule, according to Tankathon.com. Given the relatively small gap, which is 4 games, between the top-seeded Celtics and the 4th-seeded Cavaliers. This is a very interesting race for the top seed, or just within the top 4 in the Eastern Conference. What do you guys think of the Cavs?
I'm going to go pretender.
Okay.
Might be a hot take.
We're going to fight right now.
Considering the love I just gave Miami. I really do like Cleveland's roster construction and their pieces, but I don't have the clutch stats on me, but I feel like last time I checked, they were a pretty horrible clutch team. I don't know if that's still true.
Mediocre at best is when I looked at it.
And Donovan, for his career, isn't the best performing clutch player, again, according to stats, which he also has big moments, so take it how you will. I don't know. It's not even a bad thing for them, because when they made that trade and we were on the show last time, I said it feels like a move for the next 5 years. It doesn't really matter what happens this year. Feels like they're always going to be in the mix. And even though they were so good last year, they fell off with the injuries. They didn't even make the playoffs when they lost in the play-in. So the first year just kind of feels like a happy to be here type thing.
Yeah.
You obviously want to win if you're them, but I'm not expecting them to make a run all 4 rounds. They can probably second round, maybe a surprise conference finals appearance. But if an inexperienced Cavs that doesn't perform great down the stretch matches up with Boston or Milwaukee, I'm putting a lot of money on the other 2 teams before them. So they're a slight pretender to me.
If you have any questions about it, you can talk to the local punter here. He'll give you some tips on who to bet on. I was going to say, in terms of the clutch stats, right? So I've been watching basketball for many years. I don't really know how to factor these stats in and what they mean. Of course, it's not great if the stats are what they are. They're facts. It's you're missing more shots than you're making in the clutch. Let's say Donovan Mitchell's at 35% in clutch minutes. And again, I feel like a lot of people, when they refer to clutch moments or when they refer to clutch stats, some people use the last 5 minutes. Some people use, we'll say, the NBA.com stats, which I think is the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then some people consider the only clutch moment the last 24 seconds. So I don't even know there's no universal clutch, but nonetheless, we'll take your point that they're not clutch. You're talking about Mitchell and Garland? Or just Mitchell?
Donovan, I don't know enough about Darius's his clutch stats.
Because I'm a huge fan of that backcourt, and just because you need shot creation, they're going to make plays down the stretch, whether they make them or not, sure. But I just like the fact that they have two very, I would say, elite shot creators, and they have the best defense in the league at this moment, arguably anyway. It could be the Bucks. I just like their chances to have a good run and to match up well with some of these teams and to be a bad matchup for other teams. What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, no, they're Contender. I agree with you. Pretty much everything you just basically said.
I'm stealing your takes.
I don't need to throw in my 2 cents. Mac has got it all. That's why he's the host. Hey.
I just also like the Allen Mobley Twin Towers. Like, good luck getting a bucket in the paint against them. I know they're both relatively thin. Embiid is going to punish them probably. But does Embiid go down low? Like, he loves to play on the perimeter like a guard. So
mad not to, as far as I'm concerned.
Giannis would punish them probably. But anyway, different story for a different time. I do want to point out, losing Kevin Love is a strange... I want to do like a wind horse. Like, what's going on here? Why did he...
It came out of left field, hey?
Yeah, like what... You know what's weird about it? Let me just preface. There was an interview he had on the J.J. Redick podcast, I believe. He was talking about how he had a very close relationship with J.B. Bickerstaff, the head coach. So I don't know if... maybe
they didn't expect him to be there for long.
It's just so weird. It's so left field. He was part of a good team, good bench player. He wants to go elsewhere? Why?
Was he not a 6-man contender last year too?
He was. I think he finished second or third.
Yeah, he was a finalist, and then he was playing to start the year, and then he just fell out of the rotation.
I was going to say, have you actually seen about the minutes? Like Dylan Windler and Dean Wade. One of them was injured, and now all of a sudden, like Kevin Love's just doing what he needs to do, coming off the bench, making plays, rebound, shooting. The second he comes back, oh, thanks, mate, and go to the end of the bench.
That is weird.
I'm sorry, but Kevin Love, Dylan Windler,
it
Dean
could have
Wade,
something to do with their youth movement.
I'll go.
That's a very young roster.
Yeah.
So perhaps they value the veteran presence in the locker room a lot more
Kevin Love
than
still
on the
wants
court.
to play, though.
But I do think...
Well, maybe that's why they did the right thing by him, by letting him go. But like I said, a team that's set up to contend or have a chance every year for the next 5 years, just let those young guys play through their mistakes this year, I guess.
I agree with you. I think, Pretender this year can get experience in the playoffs, contend years coming by. Like, if Evan Mobley continues to get better and better, can shore up a mid-range or a floater or some... Like, his push shot's looking pretty good, and he's got good touch around the ring.
Yeah.
At times, he looks like he can't handle the basketball, and at times, he looks like he's got it on a string. Like... It's a weird human being, but I think in the general picture of it, like Donovan Mitchell scored, I think, like 71.
Yeah, he had a decent game. Yeah,
That was all right.
Plus assists, meaning it gets to like 85 or something. It's genuinely crazy that like you put that dude in the playoffs. I don't think a lot of teams. Like, if he needs to hit buckets, he's going to get buckets. Like, it's just how much is everyone else going to be limited in their first or second action? Because it's always third or fourth guy, whether they can step up. Because your stars are always going to eat. It's whether your other dudes can step up in the playoffs. And we found from, the Celtics, like Robert Williams can step up. And, the Bucks, Jay Crowder has experience in that. So whether they need a few more years to gain that experience... And then they're going to be right there.
I think you do make a great point with Donovan too, and about how the guys around him are going to play. To his credit, when he was in Utah and it came down to those clutch moments, he didn't have a lot of help. Like, they had Mike Conley taken some of the biggest shots in franchise history.
Yeah.
Versus having Darius to hand it off to, or that could have impacted his stats because you're probably not taking the most favorable shots when no one else should be.
Yeah, I think to your point about other guys stepping up, like, I think that the next person stepping up, so let's say they match up with the Bucks in the second round. So then you take, like, Jrue Holiday is probably going to presumably match up with Mitchell. So then it falls on Garland to make plays. Who's matching up with Garland? I think whoever he matched, like, let's say they put Grayson Allen on him. I think he's going to cook Grayson Allen, in my opinion. He's just too quick. He's too shifty. And then I don't think it falls on Mobley. I think Mobley's more defense first, but it'd be nice if he turned into a 20-point scorer. That would make a huge difference for that team. On the horizon, unless I'm misreading this, and maybe you guys can correct me, the Cavaliers currently have the 2 rookie scale max contracts with Garland and Mitchell. So then let's say if Mobley improves to the point where he makes an all-star game or whatever you need to qualify for that contract, they won't be able to afford him, or they won't be able to sign him. So what's going to happen there? How do you re-sign Mobley? Because he's the guy you keep, or do you just trade Garland?
Trade Garland.
It's funny to make it that casual. Just trade Garland. He's such a great player.
But that's the way the Cavs would be looking at it. You'd have to look at it from that perspective. You're not going to give up Jared Allen. You're not going to give up Donovan Mitchell. Who's the next domino to fall?
So this is my point of I think there should be anyway some desperation in trying to win now. Not saying they are capable of beating a Celtics or Bucks, but if you have a contract situation, you have all these pieces right now, relatively in their primes, then go for it. I think you should, for whatever that's worth, because the financial situation looks a bit harrowing in the next couple of years. Okay, last team in the East. This is a spicy one. I mean, in different ways. The Philadelphia 76ers. So they're 38-19. They're the 3rd seed, 6th in offensive rating, 6th in defensive rating, 4th in net rating. Really good season so far. Excellent offense overall. Also the fewest total possessions in the league. Again, I think that bodes well for the playoffs because the pace slows down. 5th slowest pace in the league. Toughest remaining schedule in the NBA, according to Tankathon.com. So right now as the 3rd seed, with the Cavs having the opposite of that, one of the easiest, we could see a little swapperoo. We'll see how that goes. Now, an example of them having a tough schedule is they have to play the Bucks twice more and the Celtics twice more. So they're in for 4 very difficult games at that point. I'm going to say contender, but very tough road ahead, lots of pressure. We'll start with you, Joel. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, definitely contenders. Definitely contenders. But the playoffs, it's going to make or break them. Same thing we talk about. We've discussed it. The boys have discussed it.
Yeah.
The analysts discussed it. The professionals discussed it. It's either the Doc Rivers curse or the James Harden curse or,
the Philly curse.
The Philly curse. If they make it to the second round and play a Bucks or Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and by the grace of God get out of that and make it to the finals, we'll all be sitting here going, well, okay. They proved us all wrong. They proved analysts wrong. It's not the Doc curse, but...
I don't think the city could take a loss too after the Super Bowl.
Tough. That's
like
tough.
A bomb
Great
dropping
point.
on Philly is depending on how the 76ers do in the postseason this year.
Yeah, Philly's a rough one. It's such a rough city if you're not good.
Yeah, so the playoffs is a big thing for them. They'll be fine. They'll be in the top 5 seeding-wise for the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
But it'll be that second round. The first round, they'll probably get out of it. It'll be the second round. That's it.
So if they run into if they run into Miami in the first round, let's say they fall to the 4 and they play Miami as the 5. Miami beat them last year. Now I know it's different because it was the first iteration of Harden. I think Embiid had a face injury or whatever, so it wasn't perfect. Do you think Miami can beat them? This is the thing. First round, Philly loses. The sky falls in Philadelphia.
Yep, Doc Rivers doesn't have a job, that's for sure.
I think Joel Embiid is too good of a player. I
think you're right.
Yeah,
I think
agree with you, Josh.
They've been around for probably quite a few years. Had one bounce from a Toronto game. Their entire system.
It's a tough one.
But I think we've just seen them too often and either seen it fail or seen Doc Rivers not make changes when he needs to for there to be trust in them to be a final contending team.
They're a legit contender to me.
Yeah.
I really, really believe in that team. I think I mentioned the stat the other day. It's since December 7th or something, by far the best record in the East, by far. Embiid is an MVP candidate every single year. That's a pretty good place to start with a contending team. Harden has his questions in the postseason. Whether James Harden's missing or making shots, he's still a threat. He's still a playmaker. He's still one of the best pick and roll ball handlers of all time. As long as the aggression is there, I guess his percentages dip in the postseason. That's fine. But previous years, there's also been a lack of aggression due to his hamstring injury. He needs to still be a threat on the ball. But yeah, they got... Is it D'Anthony Melton that slipped into the starting lineup when they benched Maxey? He fits like a glove. That's been amazing. They got PJ Tucker, who's just a contender guy. Say what you want about Tobias Harris. And Maxey's probably the best scorer that comes off the bench in the league right now. I can't think of anyone else that'd be better.
If you remember last year, and one reason I like Maxey is he was the only guy that cared in that game, 6, when Miami beat Philly in Philly. Embiid and Harden looked defeated. Now, you could say whatever that's relating to, injuries or whatever, exhaustion. Maxey was the only guy out there still hustling for loose balls, still going for layups. I think he led the team in scoring. I trust Maxey more than I trust Harden. I'm sorry to say that. I think they're a contender. I'm not that confident in them. And the two biggest issues I have with the team start with Doc Rivers. I don't think we can ever underestimate his ability to make a bad decision, to screw up a lineup, to make an ATO and after timeout, call a bad play out of a timeout, say the wrong thing in a press conference, throw Ben Simmons under the bus. No big deal. Like, the guy just finds a way to screw up. That's the way I look at it. He is a good coach in general, but he also, it's almost like the perfect Philly coach. It's just like good, but also could implode very easily.
I do think regarding the coaching too, because you sort of mentioned the other day in the group chat that if this isn't the year, might be the one that Embiid's on the move and that sort of blows up.
But it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it could happen.
It could.
Legitimately.
But I think having Ime available as one of the best coaches in the league, if it's a coaching issue you need to address, you might be able to convince yourselves for one more year that you've got a shot.
I like that.
It's not bad, yeah. Ime knocks some heads in. The other problem I have is like the resolve and the toughness of James Harden. Like, I don't know how many times we've seen it. Josh, you could speak to this, unfortunately. He just flames out in the playoffs, whether it's against the Spurs with, whatever it was, 13 turnovers in that one game. He just looks out of it sometimes in the playoffs. And my point would be that whenever it comes to like the superstars of the league, I feel when I look at players, I can depend on, I have a little list here. I can depend on Jokic. I can depend on Giannis. I could depend on Luka. I'll throw Tatum in there. They're going to show up every single night. You can't say that about James Harden. And James Harden's in that category of talent, but not in that category of resiliency.
Well, that's why this is the one last year that I want to give him a chance. Because like I say, he's battled through some injuries.
It's very generous of you, Phil.
But also there's, all those years in Houston, his body and mind would be so burnt out after the load that he carried on the offensive end the entire season.
And also trying to deal with CP3.
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been the perfect year to set James Harden up for postseason success. So if he fails or, has some shortcomings again, then that's just who he is as a player.
Yeah.
To me, but I'm good to give it like a clean slate just for this postseason run because I think there's been a lot of outside factors out of his control for a lot of the postseason stuff.
True. CP3 getting injured in 2018 sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks a lot.
What if?
Sorry, Josh.
I think with the league moving, like, although it's still a very prominent aspect of stars getting or foul hunting, I feel like that was such a pivotal part of James Harden's game with them no longer or being more aware of his sort of actions and with him now being that little bit older, losing that half step. Like, and as you said, the injury history, I just think pure shooter. His ability to put the ball in the hole at times is just a thing of beauty. Like
it can be.
He can shake off a defender pretty easily. He's still got his ball handling. He can still pass. He looks for people to pass to. I just worry about not longevity, but just how much he's got his money. He's got his Adidas money.
How much does he care? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where is the
Passion?
championship, like the MJ, drive? And I'm not saying we all need that, whether that's levels of toxic or something. But
no, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, you just need. I don't know. I feel like it. Yeah, he's over the hill.
I agree with you. He doesn't have that passion. That's why I don't want to get behind him, despite the talent, despite whatever. What's funny is I actually like him as the secondary guy beside Embiid. Embiid should be the one that has this MJ we'll call it killer instinct. I think Embiid has it more than Harden, but I've never seen it from Harden. And that's partly why when he was in Houston, it was like, okay, they have the great offense. He's a facilitator. He's this, triple doubles. Great. What happens in the playoffs? Just never showed up. So
maybe PJ Tucker needs to punch him.